Welcome to the nervous system. Chapter 12 marks the ending of the muscular system and the beginning of our focus on neurons, brains, and special senses. This is a hot burner on a stove with a hand reaching towards it. Instinctively, and probably because of past learning experiences you've gone through, you know that this is a bad idea. Why? Because it's going to hurt. It's going to burn his hand. If this person reaches out and touches this burner, how quickly will they respond? I wonder, how quickly will they jerk their hand away from that hot burner? Does it take a second or two, like they touch it, then they think to themselves, this burner, I think it's hot. Oh, what is that smell? Is that burning flesh? Yeah, I think it's burning. Oh, that's my fingers. I better pull my hand away. Is that the process? No. From experience, you probably know it is a super quick jerk as you get that hand away from the hot flame. Why? Because it hurt. You felt pain. Now, your epithelial cells that compose your skin did not tell you that it was painful. Your muscles didn't tell you it was painful. Your bones didn't either. Everything we've talked about so far had no part in that. The sensation is from the nervous system. Inside of your skin, you have several different nerve components that all have the job of sensing. We've seen them before as tactile cells in Meissner's corpuscle, Pacinian corpuscle. There's a few more, but all of them are connected to nerves that are constantly waiting for input. Their input could be pain, pressure, heat, cold. All of those can send that nerve impulse up to the brain. It's not just the skin either. You have nerves that travel into your muscles and into your bones. They help with communication and monitoring. They have different jobs there, but they're throughout your entire body. Nerve cells are not shaped like your normal cells that we've seen so far. How could they be? When a nerve cell has to be located right next to your spinal cord, but it has a long axon that reaches all the way to your fingertips. We're talking about a cell having a meter-long extension of its membrane, when the cell itself is so tiny. Nerve cells will have a cell body which is large and contains the nucleus. This cell body has small extensions coming off of it called dendrites and axons. The long extensions called axons are able to bring that information from your fingertips, up your arm, all the way to your spinal cord. Nerve cells all over your body combine their axons together into nerve highways. And here's a picture of all of the nerves crisscrossing your entire body. They bring information from your fingertips, your hands, your feet, your legs. All of that comes up to the spinal cord and to the brain. The nervous system components in your fingers, your hands, your feet, that's not where the thinking happens. That's just where the message travels. Once it gets to the spinal cord, that's where the decisions finally get made. In the spinal cord and the brain, the nerve impulse that came in from your fingertips finally gets processed, and it's there that a decision is made about what to do. In our previous example of the hot burner, the nerve receptors in the skin detected the pain and the heat, and they carried that information to the spinal cord. There, a decision is made to contract the muscles of your arm to pull your hand away from the heat. That command to move the muscle is sent down a different nerve all the way to the muscle in your arm. The nerve impulse comes into that neuromuscular junction. We saw that previously. It was where the nervous system communicated with a muscle. It releases the calcium, causes a contraction, and your whole hand jerks away from the burner. What would happen in this scenario if you couldn't feel pain? If you set your fingers on that hot burner without realizing that it was hot, and then no signal came from your nerves, and you just couldn't tell. You can probably see how someone with this disease, SIPA, is going to inadvertently hurt themselves many times stepping on a nail and not realizing that it was there. Little things like that you and I take for granted, being uncomfortable because of the position we're in because something is hurting us. And if you feel no pain, you don't notice it. This is a disease where the nerve endings that provide that sensory input do not function properly. You would think it would be nice not to feel pain, but pain is there to be a signal and to protect us. And in its absence, you can see how vital it is. The actual name is the congenital insensitivity to pain with anhidrosis. It is the inability to feel pain and temperature changes, and you also can't sweat because you're not picking up those temperature changes. If you look up what it is like to live with SIPA and what precautions you have to take, it makes you appreciate your sensory receptors a little more. Results of this can be that you have seizures from fevers that your body can't really regulate, amputations whenever you hurt a limb, a hand, or a foot and don't realize it, and severe injuries. What causes it? A protein related to the survival of your sensory neurons can't function properly, and in its absence, they die off and are not there to send signals. When it works properly, the basic functions of the nervous system are to gather information about your environment. We call this the sensory input. Inputs can include sight, sound, touch, everything that you perceive around you in your environment. Integration is where the information is brought together in the spinal cord and/or the brain. And finally, the nervous system has to be able to do something about it. That's the motor side of the nervous system. It can control the muscles or the glands, causing them to contract and move. The nervous system has two divisions. The central nervous system is the brain and the spinal cord only. The peripheral nervous system is all of the nerves of the body. We abbreviate these to be the CNS for the central and the PNS for the peripheral. This box shows you exactly where the CNS is located, the brain on top and the spinal cord going through your back. This is where we said the decisions happen, and the technical term was this is where integration happens. All of those other nerves in the peripheral nervous system, they don't make any decisions. They just carry input or output. We're a pretty large, complex organism, so it makes sense for us to have that central nervous system. But there are other animals who are so simple that they just have nerves traveling over their entire body, and that's it. There's no brain. Those nerves have to be able to make simple decisions for themselves, and you don't need a centrally located brain. You can see this in some sea life that's not actually going to move around. It's very simple in what it has to do. Once you get a little more complex and we see a lizard has to put a little more thought into escaping predators, walking around, eating, catching its food. So it has a little tiny brain at the top of that spinal cord. Not as big as yours, but there's something. Structurally, the nervous system is divided into that central nervous system and peripheral. Functionally, it has two divisions as well. Part of the nervous system functions as sensory. We call this one the afferent. It receives sensory information and transmits it to the central nervous system of the spinal cord and the brain. The motor nervous system is called the efferent. It initiates the motor output and transmits that to the effectors, which are normally the muscles. Here's a picture showing us that functional organization. We see a body in the middle with a brain pretty prominent up there. On the left, there's a blue box for input, and on the right, there's a pink box for output. On the left side, below the blue box, we see how that input comes in. Somatic sensory input is sensory input that is consciously perceived. So, what your eyes see, what your ears hear, you're conscious of it. Visceral sensory input, on the other hand, is something that you do not realize that you are detecting. Did you know that right now you are sensing the amount of oxygen in your blood? I could not tell you how much oxygen I have in my blood right now, but that information is coming up from my nerves to my brain. The output as well is consciously controlled and unconsciously controlled. I can consciously think about and control my output to move my hand, but at the same time, my body that is sensing my oxygen levels might send the output to increase my heart rate. I have no idea it's increasing my heart rate. It's not consciously perceived. Your motor functions allow you to have control of some body movements, but not others. The ones that you have control of are your skeletal muscles, the voluntary ones. We call this the somatic nervous system. It's the consciously perceived one. The autonomic nervous system is kind of automatic. It happens involuntarily. You do not control it, and it is your smooth muscles and your glands. The smooth muscles in your blood vessels that can constrict and narrow the blood vessel diameter. They also line your digestive tract. The contraction and relaxation is what pushes that food through your small intestine or churns the contents of your stomach. All of that is being done automatically by the autonomic nervous system.